MMC TV USA, now on POTV Channel 100.
Well, hello there once again and welcome to MMC World Roundup, where we connect you with the latest news from Sri Lanka and around the world. Before we dive into the details, let's take a quick look at what's making headlines today. Supply of electricity, petroleum and fuel made essential services. $300 million loan from the Asian Development Bank for the implementation of power sector reforms. Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus named the Bangladesh's interim leader. The track kit worn by Sri Lankan athlete Tharushi Karunaratne to be displayed at the Olympic Museum in Lausanne, Switzerland. Well, taking a look at your news in detail, a special Gazette notification has been issued declaring the supply of electricity and all related services, the supply or distribution of petroleum products and fuel as essential services. Presidential Secretary Saman Ekanayake has issued the communique on the directives of President Ranil Wickremesinghe. The communique was published in accordance with the powers vested in the President under Section 2 of the Essential Public Services Act, number 61 of 1979. The agreement for obtaining a $300 million loan from the Asian Development Bank for the implementation of power sector reforms and financial sustainability program has been signed by the government of Sri Lanka and the ADB. The government of Sri Lanka had discussions with the Asian Development Bank to mobilize 3 policy-based loans amounting to $300 million to implement the power sector reforms and financial sustainability program. The relevant power sector reforms and financial sustainability program consists of 3 sub-programs, and a loan of $100 million will be mobilized once the policy actions relevant for each of the sub-programs are completed, according to the ADB. The program will support the establishment of independent and financially sustainable electricity utilities. Also, it will support streamlined and accelerated development of renewable energy sources for electricity generation under the reform areas. The Ministry of Finance, Economic Stabilization and National Policies will be the executing agency of the above program, and the Ministry of Power and Energy will implement the program in collaboration with the Ceylon Electricity Board, Sri Lanka Sustainable Energy Authority and Lanka Electricity Company Private Limited. Since the relevant agencies have successfully achieved all pre-policy actions related to Sub-Program 1, the relevant loan proceeds of $100 million will be disbursed to the Treasury once the loan agreement declared effective. The loan will be provided under concessionary terms at a fixed interest rate of 2% per year with a repayment period of 25 years, including a 5-year grace period. The track kit worn by Sri Lankan athlete Tharushi Karunaratne has been donated to be displayed at the Olympic Museum in Lausanne, Switzerland. The kit, autographed by 19-year-old Karunaratne, is slated to be displayed in the Olympic Museum in honor of being the youngest athlete who represented the Asian region in the women's 800-meter event. Accordingly, this also creates history as the first ever track kit worn by a Sri Lankan athlete to be featured in the Olympic Museum. The handing over of the autographed kit to the International Olympic Committee officials was carried out during a special ceremony held in the Paris Olympics Village. The kit was presented to Ms. Anne Jacquard, Senior Manager of Exhibits and Programs at the IOC Museum. In recognition of her donation and the honor it brings, Tarushi will receive a certificate signed by the IOC President Thomas Bach. This certificate, a symbol of international recognition, will be sent to her by post, further commemorating her exceptional achievement. The Cabinet of Ministers has approved a proposal to allow a selected private investor for the construction of futsal courts within the identified government lands and sports complexes under a public-private partnership method. Cabinet spokesman stated that futsal, a football-based sport played on an artificial field and an indoor court of 40 by 20 meters and 4 meters height, has a high attraction of the public. At present, several futsal indoor stadiums have been built around the urban areas of Sri Lanka, Gunawardena added. He said that as there is a high attraction for this sport, it is expected that under a public-private partnership system, a private investor will be given selected government lands and sports complexes on lease basis to construct futsal courts. Accordingly, the approval has been granted to select a private investor following public procurement procedures for the construction of futsal sports complexes within the identified government land and sports complex premises for a maximum lease period of 30 years. Meanwhile, it has also been approved to allow the selected private investor to construct 2 futsal courts in Torrington and Sugatadasa sports complexes under a grant provided by the government of Pakistan. Funeral of the Chief Sanganayaka of Colombo Navakorale of Siam Nikaya and the Chief Incumbent of the Hunupitiya Gangaramaya, Venerable Galbuddha Gnanasarathera, affectionately known as Podihamuduruo, took place at the Gangaramaya temple premises. Speaking at the cremation ceremony, Anunayaka Thera of Malwata chapter, Venerable Dr. Nyanguda Dhammakirti Sri Sangarakita Vijita Thera said, Venerable Galbuddha Sri Gnanasara Mahathera always had a vision to build the country by mixing both modernity and culture. He also worked hard to make it happen. He was beloved to everyone despite their party, religion and culture. He always guided rulers for the betterment of the people and the country. Anunayaka of the Askiri chapter, Most Venerable Anamaduwe Sri Dhammadasi Nayaka Thera, addressing the cremation ceremony of the Thera, said, the late chief incumbent of Gangaramaya temple, Venerable Galbuddha Gnanasarathera, was very active for nearly 75 years of his life for the protection and the betterment of Buddhism during 81 long years of his entire life. He guided novice monks to be educated and move forward through Sri Gnanasara Pirivena in Gangaramaya. He was not only a very prudent and wise character, but also a great artist who worked hard to make the Gangaramaya what it is today, much more than a temple in the conventional term, but a place of worship, a seat of learning, and a cultural center. In 1979, Podihamuduruo founded the Navam Perahera in Colombo. This glamorous cultural pageant has now become a great tourist attraction. In the field of vocational education, the Vocational Training Center established in the place has given a platform for thousands of youth to enter the local and foreign job markets. He always had the slogan that bhikkhus should not fear anyone, and he always acted like that. Officials from India and Sri Lanka held another round of talks this week on the proposed bilateral economic and technology cooperation agreement, with at least 2 more rounds required to resolve outstanding issues, including a new Indian request for expedited Sri Lankan regulatory clearance for its medical exports. ETCA seeks to build on the 2000 Indo-Sri Lanka Free Trade Agreement to broaden the scope of economic, trade, investment and technology cooperation between the two countries. It covers both goods and services. There are several chapters including customs cooperation and trade facilitation, trade remedies and phytosanitary measures. Negotiations on some are concluded. The next round is expected to take place in October. India has proposed an annex related to the health sector to be inserted into the chapter on technical barriers to trade. The delegation wanted consensus on certain regulatory processes and pricing policies related to pharmaceutical imports from India. Sri Lanka countered, however, that this could go into the chapter on economic cooperation and that further consultation would be required with the local health sector, including medical professionals, the pharmaceutical industry, and the relevant ministry before a commitment is made. The National Dengue Control Unit of the Ministry of Health has issued a warning that a potential rise in dengue cases in the coming weeks could be due to lower public vigilance towards prevention, especially in light of the rains. As of mid-year, Sri Lanka has reported 32,967 dengue patients with high transmission rates in several regions, consultant community physician of the NDCU, Dr. Nimalka Panilahete, said. The Western Province, including the Colombo district, is particularly affected with 7,864 reported patients, but there are substantial numbers in Gampaha district amounting to 3,569 and Kalutara district 1,799, leading to increased public health concerns. This surge is attributed to the monsoon season, which creates ideal breeding conditions for the Aedes mosquito, the primary vectors of dengue, Director of NDCU Dr. Sudat Samaravira said. Yatinuara, Boralasgamu, Moratua, Nigambo, Alapatha, and Kalavanchikudi MOH areas have recently been identified as high-risk zones. Kolonava, Pitakote, Kahathurua, Ratnapura Municipal Council, Kuruvita and Kalania MOH areas have also been designated as high risk. Hospitals and clinics have set up dengue treatment facilities and protocols to manage the influx of patients, the medical officer at the NDCU, Dr. Lahiru Kurituaku, said. People's cooperation in maintaining cleanliness of surroundings and reducing mosquito breeding sites is crucial to controlling the outbreak. Medical experts and specialist consultants have emphasized that pregnant women who develop a fever should be taken to a hospital. The petition filed by plantation companies against the Gazette notification issued by the Minister of Labour stipulating a minimum daily wage for plantation workers has been withdrawn. Accordingly, the Court of Appeal has decided to conclude the proceedings related to the case. The petition had been filed by 21 plantation companies, including Agarapatana Plantations Limited, seeking a writ order invalidating the recent Gazette notification issued by the Minister of Labour stipulating a minimum daily wage for plantation workers. The petitioners had claimed that the decision taken by the Minister of Labour without consulting them regarding the matter violates the legal principle of natural justice. Accordingly, the petitioners had sought an order invalidating the decision, claiming that the decision was made arbitrarily by the government. However, the Labour Ministry had issued a new Gazette cancelling the previous Gazette notification, which had been issued increasing the daily wage of plantation workers to 1,700 rupees. Meanwhile, the new Gazette had been issued directing the payments to be made through the Wages Board. India's Alliance Air completed its 500th flight to Jaffna International Airport in Sri Lanka recently. According to the Airport and Aviation Services Limited, the milestone was celebrated via a ceremony at the Jaffna International Airport. Alliance Air resumed international scheduled flight operations between Jaffna and Chennai after the global pandemic. The airline, a wholly owned subsidiary of AIAHL, recommenced commercial flight operations from Chennai International Airport to Jaffna International Airport on 12 December 2022. At present, the airline operates daily flights between Jaffna and Chennai, giving more opportunities for travelers to explore cultural, business and tourism opportunities between the two cities. The airline operates its ATR 72 aircraft, and up to date in 2024, the airline has handled over 50,000 passengers through the Northern Gateway. Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus, a long-time political foe of Bangladesh's ousted Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, has been named the country's interim leader. The 84-year-old was appointed a day after Ms. Hasina fled the country following weeks of deadly protests that brought her resignation. While Professor Yunus has been lauded for his pioneering use of microloans, Ms. Hasina regarded him as a public enemy. He is currently on bail, appealing against a 6-month jail term in what he has called a politically motivated case. Students who led the mass protests that unseated Ms. Hasina refused to accept a military-led government and pushed for Professor Yunus to lead the interim administration. Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris selected Minnesota Governor Tim Walz to be her running mate, choosing a progressive policy champion and a plain speaker from America's heartland to help win over rural white voters, said people familiar with the matter.
You might have seen a few people showed up in Philadelphia the other night. And then 10,000 plus walked into a field in western Wisconsin. And then on Wednesday, the largest crowd of the campaign showed up in Detroit, Michigan.
Walz, a 60-year-old U.S. Army National Guard veteran and former teacher, was elected to a Republican-leaning district in the U.S. House of Representatives in 2006 and served 12 years before being elected governor of Minnesota in 2018. As governor, Walz has pushed a progressive agenda that includes free school meals, goals for tackling climate change, tax cuts for the middle class, and expanded paid leave for Minnesota workers. Walz has long advocated for women's reproductive rights but also displayed a conservative bent while representing a rural district in the U.S. House, defending agricultural interests and backing gun rights. Harris, the daughter of immigrants from Jamaica and India, is adding a popular Midwestern politician whose home state votes reliably. Harris, the daughter of immigrants from Jamaica and India, is adding a popular Midwestern politician whose home state votes reliably for Democrats in presidential elections but is close to Wisconsin and Michigan, two crucial battlegrounds. Such states are seen as crucial in deciding this year's election, and Walz is widely seen as skilled at connecting with white rural voters who in recent years have voted broadly for the Republican Donald Trump, Harris's rival for the White House. Well, that wraps up our news coverage for today. You can reach us on POTV, Samsung TV, LG TV, Apple TV, YouTube, and Facebook Live, reaching the entire United States and across the globe. Thank you so much for joining in with us today. Until next week, have a fantastic week ahead.
To catch the full program and more, subscribe to MMC TV USA on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram and TikTok